Hey everybody, it's Kevra. That's me, I'm Kevra. And oh, you thought I was done talking about Mario Party Superstars DLC? Yeah, so did I. Now this video isn't actually about Mario Party Superstars DLC. What this video is actually about is what's going to replace Mario Kart 8 Deluxe Booster Course Pass once Wave 6 has finally been released. Now, some of you may be sitting there thinking, well, why does anything have to replace it? I mean, we're still getting N64 games, we're still getting Game Boy Advance games. Why would we need something else besides Mario Kart 8 Deluxe DLC? And you know what? Maybe you're right. Maybe Nintendo is done doing the DLCs after Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. I mean, they've got Splatoon 2 in there, they've got Animal Crossing, they've got Mario Kart 8. Why would they need to add anything else? As long as Nintendo keeps giving N64 games and Game Boy Advance games, that is surely worth $30 extra a year. Aw, you're adorable. Now, someone doesn't remember the backlash when the expansion pack first launched. That person is you. I mean, here's the big thing that you have to remember is the fact that the N64 library wasn't exactly huge. And the Game Boy Advance, well, I mean, it's great, but at the same time, it's games from like the early 2000s on a portable device. It's not gonna carry the expansion pack by itself. So yeah, right now, I don't think it's very likely that they're not gonna do some sort of added bonus content aside from just the old games, considering ever since they launched the expansion pack, we've been getting DLC added to it every few months. It started with Animal Crossing, it moved on to Mario Kart 8 Booster Pass, and they threw in Splatoon 2 DLC right before Splatoon 3 came out, even though it's the only one that was like old DLC, as opposed to Mario Kart and Animal Crossing, which were brand spanking new. So yeah, with all the rumors circulating right now that we're not gonna get next gen until the second half of next year, likely late summer, early fall, it definitely had me wondering what Nintendo is going to add once the DLC for Mario Kart 8 Deluxe ends. Now, I guess Nintendo could just technically sit back and go, you know what, it's the last year, the console's winding down, we're not gonna do anything fancy for the last and final year. When the new system launches at the end of 2024, then we'll have a new DLC coming out, or at least announce it then, and it'll come out in 2025. Personally, I don't really subscribe to that theory. It kind of makes sense, but it just doesn't seem that smart. To be fair, I guess they don't always make smart choices, do they? They worked so hard to get people to invest in the expansion pack, to get people to renew their membership for the expansion pack. They've been throwing Mario Kart 8 DLC at us repeatedly every few months to be like, look, it's not just old games, we've also got this coming to the expansion pack. I mean, I honestly can't imagine that Nintendo is not afraid that they're going to lose memberships if they don't do something else with this expansion pack once the Booster Course Pass is done. Now that being said, because it is their last year, maybe they're just gonna give you all the old DLCs. You know, so instead of doing nothing, it's kind of like they're barely doing anything. But you know, I will say that it kind of makes sense because, again, this is their final year. This is the time to actually bring up those DLCs because what are they gonna do it whenever the Switch 2 launches? Are they really gonna give us last gen DLC for the current gen? Is that what they're gonna do? No, if they're gonna do it, they're probably gonna do it right after the Booster Course Pass ends because it doesn't really make sense to do it when the next console launches. I mean, I guess in a really weird way, it would make sense because the expansion pack is all about the old games from, long ago. And so I guess giving us the DLCs from last gen, making them old would also be in the same vein, I guess. But the big issue that I have with this is just me wondering, is anybody gonna care? I mean, look, by this point, anyone who's interested in the DLC has probably already bought the DLC. If you liked Luigi's Mansion 3 and you wanted more content, you probably already bought it. And then the other thing is, if you start releasing all that old content next year, you're probably also gonna do it for the next gen, because you're not gonna just stop at a few DLCs. Like, they still have Luigi's Mansion 3, they still have Xenoblade Chronicles 2 DLC, Xenoblade Chronicles 3 DLC, Splatoon 3 DLC, I think there's a DLC for the frickin' Captain Toad, whatever it's called, game. So doing one kind of big final send-off for the Switch as we give away all the old DLC just seems kind of weird because we're gonna still be giving away that old DLC when the next gen console comes out. So long, we're saying goodbye to this console. And then the new one comes out. Yeah, we're still saying goodbye to this console. So I could really see this being a choice, but it would also be a really weird choice that would kind of make sense because they only ever gave away Splatoon 2 expansion pack DLC. And that was basically it for the old DLC. It was almost like they were holding on to the rest of them for, I guess, until later this year or early next. But honestly, I think that the real reason that they haven't released the rest of the DLCs is because no one cared about Splatoon 2 DLC coming to the expansion pack. Because again, everyone who wanted it already bought it. So yeah, this seems like a very realistic option, but it also just seems like the dumbest option that Nintendo could do, other than absolutely nothing, which is, I guess, another possibility. So those are the first two weird options that I don't really like, but I guess are kind of still practical. Of course, I think that the old DLC is much more practical than the no DLC, but I do have two other options that I also think are likely, but before I get to those, let's talk about what I don't think is very likely. Pokemon Violet and Scarlet DLC is coming next month, and it has not been announced that it is joining the expansion pack, which means it is probably not joining the expansion pack. Also, Nintendo only owns 1/3 of Pokemon, so it didn't seem like it would be the likely option, but I know that some people thought that maybe it could possibly be a thing, simply because we have been getting the Pokemon games through Nintendo Switch Online and expansion pack. So clearly some sort of deal has been made between the Pokemon Company and Nintendo, but if it was coming to the expansion pack, we would know about it by now. We would know about it before we got the release date, especially considering the release date is less than 1 month away. Now let's go ahead and talk about Mario Kart 8 Deluxe Booster Course Pass 2. Wow, look at how optimistic you guys are. Now let's crush some hopes and dreams. Look, they just doubled the size of the game. More than doubled if you're only counting the original Mario Kart 8 game. After this last pass, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is done. Mario Kart 9 is what's on the horizon next, likely as a very early title for the next gen console. In fact, it would not even remotely surprise me if it's a launch title. In fact, I kind of expect it to be a launch title. The Wii U did not sell very well, and I know that has got to have Nintendo scared absolutely shitless about the possibility of launching a next-gen console that doesn't sell well. So what are they gonna put front and center? Most likely, Mario Kart 9. It's gonna be the biggest reason why everyone jumps over from last gen to next gen. I guess it could be a 3D Mario instead, but it just feels like it would be Mario Kart 9, considering Mario Kart 8 has sold double the amount of Super Mario Odyssey. Then again, Mario Kart has always been one of Nintendo's best-selling series, and I don't think it's ever been a launch title for one of Nintendo's systems. But anyway, the point is that I don't think we're gonna get any more tracks for Mario Kart 8. Mario Kart 8 is done. I also don't think it's very likely that we're gonna get Super Mario Wonder DLC, at least not through the expansion pack. My couple of issues with this is the fact that, one, if they do it, I feel like it's gonna be one kind of piece of DLC, maybe two, but it also just doesn't seem like the kind of game that they're gonna give DLC for. I could see them doing free updates, kind of like how they did with Metroid Dread, but I just don't really see like an expansion to the original game. Now, to be fair, I haven't played the original game, but I have played a lot of 2D Mario, and I feel like that the extra stuff that they normally add in a 2D Mario game is typically like stuff that's not gonna be what people pay for. But I mean, it could be a thing, but it's pretty low. I don't think so. Now, some people are speculating that Super Mario RPG might get DLC, and I'm just like, I don't know why they would do that either. I mean, I guess Square Enix did do some crazy stuff with Final Fantasy VII, and that was like an old game that they, modernized and all that kind of stuff, but I don't see them doing that for Super Mario RPG. It's a remake of an old game. It sounds like they're being very faithful to the source material, and I could definitely see them doing a sequel if this goes over well, but I can't really see them doing DLC for it. And then we have the games that are they're the obvious no's, right? Like the Pikmin 4, WarioWare, just anything that's not really that popular. Splatoon 3 is in the middle of DLC, so it would be weird for them to say that the second half of DLC is in the expansion pack, or be like, hey, I know everybody bought the Splatoon 3 DLC already, but hey, we're gonna go ahead and put the first wave in the expansion pack now, and then wave 2's coming in later. That seems like an absolute no. So that really only leaves us with two games that are very realistic options. And the first one is The Legend of Zelda Tears of the... Yeah, that's not happening. It's not. I had like a 5-minute segment where I talked about the pros and cons of like, is it coming to the expansion pack? You know, it lines up timing-wise kind of perfectly. It's a really popular game, but it's not a multiplayer game. And I just kept going back and forth with all these different things. It's not happening. The director of the game and Aonuma said it's not happening unless they're lying. No. So look, the fact that Tears of the Kingdom isn't getting DLC kind of made me rethink this video a little bit. I mean, in my mind, there was 4 choices that it could be, and Tears of the Kingdom was one of the more likely choices. So I took a couple of days and I thought, well, okay, if I had to pick a 4th choice, what would it be? One of the first thoughts that I had was that, well, maybe it's an unannounced game. Like, the reason that I'm having a hard time figuring this out is because the game hasn't been announced yet. And you know what? It's a pretty sound theory aside from the fact that we probably already have our big holiday titles revealed. Super Mario Bros. Wonder and Super Mario RPG are definitely the big heavy hitters that are coming out within the next few months. In fact, we probably already know most of the titles that are coming out until the end of this year. So then I started wondering, well, okay, if it's not the end of this year, maybe it's the beginning of next year that the title will be coming out. But typically they don't release their big titles just after the holiday sales ended. Of course, there are exceptions like Pokemon Arceus, but those are typically the exceptions to the rule as opposed to the rule itself. And then I started thinking, well, maybe I should go back and think about Super Mario Bros. Wonder because maybe I dismissed that a little bit too early. I mean, look, it's a 2D Mario game and 2D Mario games sell really well. And because it's so popular, if you put the DLC into the expansion pack, that makes the expansion pack look that much more valuable. But I think the big issue for me here is that it seems more like a single player game. Personally, I never see that type of game as a multiplayer game. And honestly, it kind of sounds like Nintendo agrees with that considering the weird way that they're doing online multiplayer for this game. Like, yeah, you can still do multiplayer, but like, admit it, it's a really weird version of multiplayer online. And the other big reason why I feel like it doesn't fit the standard multiplayer game is because it's not like Super Smash Brothers or Mario Party Superstars or Mario Golf or, you know, even like a shooting game like Halo. Like, when you play this game with friends, you're just playing the story mode. I mean, yeah, after you beat the game, I guess you can just go back through random levels and race through them. But it just doesn't feel like the type of game that you would want to play specifically with your friends. Now, like I said, this is a replacement pick for Tears of the Kingdom, and Tears of the Kingdom is a single-player game. However, if we got a DLC for Tears of the Kingdom, you know that it would be a lot of content, right? Like, there was a lot of extra content that came with the Breath of the Wild DLC packs. I mean, if you get the DLC for Breath of the Wild, you're gonna be spending at least a few days, probably a few weeks, going through this content. But for Super Mario Bros. Wonder, like, what are they gonna do? Give you an extra world? Maybe 2? And you'll beat them both within, like, a day? I mean, I love the 2D Mario games, don't get me wrong, but they are very simple, easy, you breeze through them kind of games. So if you just give me, like, a smaller portion of what the main game is, I'm assuming I'm probably gonna beat it in a day because I usually beat those games within, like, 5 days. And I just can't see a lot of people getting super excited about spending $30 on DLC that you're gonna beat just in a day. And it would be even more strange if they released it in waves because then this small, easy to beat content is just gonna be spread out, so you're just gonna beat it even quicker, and that's just, that doesn't really make sense unless you're not gonna do waves. And doing waves makes so much more sense because that means you're continuously adding content to the expansion pack and keeping people invested in it. Which is why multiplayer content is the best kind of content to do for something like that because it's easy to do in waves. Because unlike a single player game where you beat it and then you're done with it, a multiplayer game you keep going back to over and over again just to play with your friends because there is no end to it. You add single player content, you beat it, you're done. You add multiplayer content, it keeps the game fresh, it keeps the game alive. And in this case, most importantly, it keeps the expansion pack alive. So that just begs the question, if they were going to replace the Mario Kart 8 DLC Booster Course Pass with another multiplayer game, what would it be? Yeah, look, I know that I gave up hope about a year ago whenever the 1 year anniversary was coming up, but in my defense, I kind of thought that the new console would be coming either this fall or next spring. And clearly they weren't gonna do DLC for a game that was on the last gen console. But there is no new gen console right now, and it doesn't seem like there's gonna be one in the spring, because if there was, it likely would have been leaked by now. You know, you see it all the time. Before a company even announces their next gen console, it usually leaks online. It's on the assembly line, someone takes a picture, and then all of a sudden, it's all over the internet. Plus, we are now about to hit the 2-year mark of Mario Party Superstars. Who could have predicted that we'd be getting Superstars DLC this late? But the bad news is, if they go that route, I feel like that's their next big one they're gonna do after Mario Kart, which means we're not getting DLC for Superstars until 2023, like late 2023 or 2024. So yeah, I kind of guessed that as soon as I saw the Mario Kart 8 DLC get announced that we weren't going to get Superstars DLC until after the booster course was done. But then I walked it back because I thought that we'd have a next-gen console around this time. But now that it looks like there's gonna be a whole year that passes between the end of Mario Kart 8 Deluxe DLC coming out and the next gen system coming out, Nintendo kind of needs to fill it with something. And we know that we're not getting a new Mario Party this year. And I also kind of feel like we're not getting one next year because I really feel like the next Mario Kart game is going to be a launch title for the next generation of Switch. And I know that they could release Mario Party around the same time, but I don't feel like they want to release 2 Mario multiplayer games so close together, and especially so close to the holidays. To be honest, I was a little bit surprised that they were doing it with Super Mario Wonder and Super Mario RPG, but then I remembered Super Mario RPG is actually being developed by Square Enix, so it's not really Nintendo. And this seems to be Square's big holiday game, so that makes sense. But 2 strictly Nintendo games that both feature Mario and are both multiplayer, they would compete with each other for the holiday sales. And we also know which of the 2 is gonna dominate. Mario Kart's the winner. It can go ahead and take a victory lap. You guys want me to stop making humor things, don't you? So yeah, we're definitely not getting a Mario Party game this year, and I also have doubts about getting one next year, which is why it makes perfect sense for them to do DLC for Superstars. Especially when you think about the fact that it could act just like the Mario Kart 8 DLC, where it could be in waves. Just like the Super Smash Bros. DLC. They just love their multiplayer DLC, and there's reasons why. And for Mario Party, they could do 6 waves. I don't know if they necessarily would, because again, if next-gen console is coming out next year, would they still continue to do waves even after the new console comes out? Because the only way that I can see them doing that is if this next system is backwards compatible. But if it is backwards compatible, I could see them not only doing DLC waves for next year, but then even a few months or even up to a year after the next console launches. Now you might say that that's stupid considering the fact that a new Mario Party game comes out about every 2 or 3 years, and so they're probably already working on the new Mario Party game. And you know what? I don't completely disagree with that, but IndieCube did help develop Everybody 1-2 Switch. Now, how much time and resources went into that game from IndieCube? It's a little bit hard to say, especially when you look at the final product, which is absolute trash. But then there's also the fact that, just like how I predicted that they would be doing DLC for Superstars in 2023, early 2024, Nintendo could have had them do this DLC a long time ago. And then, whenever they were finished, they had them start working on the new Mario Party game, but Nintendo has just been holding on to it because we know that Nintendo likes to just hold on to things, just like Everybody 1-2 Switch, which apparently they were avoiding releasing because they knew it was gonna be so bad. Like, that game leaked a year ago with very bad reviews from playtests. And it basically sounded like Nintendo had shelved it because they didn't want anyone to know about it. So none of us should be surprised that they hung on to Superstars DLC until Mario Kart 8 Deluxe DLC was finished. And then there's also the fact that Mario Party Superstars keeps selling well. Week to week, month to month, I continuously see it pop up in the top 10 of video game sales. Now it's never in the top 3 spots like Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. Like, the game has significantly slowed down, but you know what? Super Mario Party was about the same, and then it got a massive spike in sales because they announced online play. I mean, that's one of the reasons why it currently has double the amount of sales of Mario Party Superstars. That, and I feel like a lot of people just got confused about Super and Superstars and just bought Super because they thought it was Superstars. In fact, that actually happened to not one of my friends, but one of my friends' friends, because we were gonna play around to Superstars, and they're like, yeah, I just bought the game. And then it turned out they bought Super, so we couldn't all play together. But look, all of that being said, there are things stacked against it. I mean, if the next gen console isn't backwards compatible, how many waves could you even do with Mario Party Superstars? For the Mario Kart 8 DLC, they doubled the amount of courses, but is that what they would do with a Mario Party Superstars? Would they just give us 5 waves and we'd get one new board every few months? And you know, maybe that's the reason why New Super Mario Bros. Wonder is the more obvious pick between the two. You know, if the new console does come out sometime in like the spring or even early summer, they really only have time to release one DLC pack before the new console takes over. And even if the new console comes out holiday of 2024, you're still not gonna have a lot of time to do a lot of waves. Or you know, maybe Nintendo just isn't even smart enough to continue giving us DLC through the expansion pack, and they're just gonna give us old games next year. So what do you guys think? Do you think that my prediction from a year and a half ago could be correct, that we're finally gonna get Superstars DLC? Or just a bunch of old DLCs to hold us off until we get the next gen console? Maybe you think we're not getting an answer at this next Direct. Maybe you think they're gonna wait until the last wave of Mario Kart 8 DLC comes out, and then a couple months later at the February Direct, that's when we get the answer of what's gonna replace it. Or maybe you think that they're done adding DLC to the expansion pack, and from here on out, it is only going to be retro games. You know, whatever you guys think, make sure you comment down below, especially if you have some really good ideas on how to do great waves for Super Mario Bros. Wonder. Like the video if you liked it, dislike the video if you disliked it, subscribe if you're new, and until next time, I'll catch you later.